G'day, it's Jamie, and welcome to Where's My Yowie. Today, I'm reading excerpts from old newspaper articles that were written by an author who went by the name One of the Old Sort in a series of sketches titled Reminiscences of the 60s about Yowie sightings around the Port Hacking area in the 1860s. So we'll get into it. This first article was published in the St. George Call on Saturday, April the 6th, 1907, titled A Reminiscence of the 60s by One of the Old Sort. Gogley had another experience according to Quandong, and that was with the native terror, the Yahoo. I might mention that I have a picture of this creature, drawn by one of our old hands, who positively swears to having seen him. Gogley happened upon the terror during one night, and being armed, fired at the unknown beast. It was at short range. Still, the creature disappeared, and on Gogley examining the spot, he found the bullets flattened on the ground. It was also reported that another port hacking marksman in more recent years had a few rounds at the same Yahoo, but the brute won every time. The end. Okay, so this article was published in the St. George Call on Saturday, the 13th of April, 1907, titled Old Times. To the editor of the Call, Dear Sir, I am following with very much pleasure the recital of One of the Old Sort's experiences in the 60s now, running in your widely read paper. Of course, as I only came to the district in 1854, I don't claim to be a very old resident when I look around among the patriarchs who are still with us, but it was my good fortune to be able to mix freely with most of the old pioneers and to hear the old tales of adventure by flood and field told and retold many times. I would be glad if you would publish your picture of the Yahoo, as several of the old pioneers described the mythical animal to me, and I want to see how the description tallies with your sketch. It was stated with these chroniclers that the animal belonged to the ape family and was a kind of hairy man. Some of the old hands, who are credited with being engaged in the collection of mountain dew in the vicinity of the Northwest Arm, said he was becoming a nuisance to them. But a bogey is, under some circumstances, a useful article to have around a locality. The Yahoo is said to have eventually fallen to the gun of that of genuine old-time sportsman Jack Hardy, who brought him down in the Port Hacking Gully. I have heard a humorous yarn to the effect that as he fell, he called out, "Jack Hardy shot me." Jack was one of the finest bushmen of the day, and a remarkably good marksman, so that probably someone who wished to recognise his merits with the gun circulated this report as a tribute to his abilities. I hope One of the Old Sort will send along some more of his experiences, as it is quite a treat to hear the old yarns retold. Yours, etc., Woolanora. So this article was published in the St. George Call on Saturday, the 8th of June, 1907, titled Yahoo Yarns by One of the Old Sort. As promised last week, I will now give readers some idea of the writings on the wall and some of the supernatural stories attached to Irvine's haunted house. In the first place, I must premise for the reader's information that the party decided upon staying at the cottage overnight, and after Pat and the others had read the various verses on the wall, they had a sort of tremor about camping under such a roof, and we were hesitating whether to take to the tents. However, a thunderstorm soon decided the case in favour of the cottage, and we chose the big room for a resting place. We had not been turned in long before the dogs set up a disturbing howling, and the horses also became restless. Pat decided to get up and investigate, and it was some hours before we next heard of him. It seems that Pat had seen something moving about the cottage. something of gigantic stature, and this troubled him. He would not go again inside, but determined to snare the beast unaided if possible. This was not to be, however, and from a vivid description of this great animal, Pat drew a sketch for the benefit of the boys, and from the sketch preserved to this day, I am able to give readers of this article some idea. A reproduction was also made on the plastered walls of the cottage, which many an old resident, if he cared to come into print, could substantiate. From the picture, it will be seen that the Yahoo must have been of peculiar formation, supposed to be over 12 feet in height, and when his stale fish-like footprints were seen in any locality, the scattered residents were always on the ready and well armed. The Yahoo was known to be able to travel by land or water, and with his feet-shaped web fashion, and with a suction underneath, he was enabled to lift up unwary fish for his own consumption, as might naturally he supposed he was more often heard than seen, similar to that oft heard of bunyip. Prior to Pat having thus sketched this wonderful creature, it was supposed to have been shot by old Jack Hardy, but Pat's experience revived old fears in the settlers' minds. He was afterwards seen some years later by a party of wild honey gatherers, who, by the way, did not wait to strain any honey after sighting Mr. Yahoo. But as he would certainly have fallen to the unerring aim of Jack Hardy, it was decided that he must be bulletproof. Still, the story of his existence and his habit of belching forth in flames of fire held good for many years. The charcoal sketches on the wall portrayed the politicians of the day, any local celebrities, besides containing various verses. One fragment of a bush poem that first greeted the visitor ran, "All you that to this mansion come, be neat and clean and something more. Put out the fire and shut the door." This would have had significance for bushmen of those days, none of whom would think of leaving a fire or leaving an opening for wild marauders of that quarter. Another verse ran, "Still in this old house a bright fire did not often shine, and when all was dark and drear outside, many a traveller there did dine." A bit more was, "A haunted house, so all the people say, and we all saw the ghost upon that frightful night. We heard him cry and offer there to pray, and really thought he never get over the fright." This rhyme had reference to seeing of a fixed-up ghost by a well-known timber getter, who, when questioned about the occurrence, remarked, I wouldn't stay there myself for any man. No, not for all of Australia. I saw enough that night to convince any man." The place was a study for a novelist, and my memory can only bring back fragments. More of these, however, later on. The end. This article was published in the St. George Call on Saturday, the 15th of June, 1907, titled "A Reminiscence of the 60s by One of the Old Sort, a trip from Sydney to the Illawarra district in the early days." Last week I described the writings on the wall at Irving's haunted house and also gave a sketch of Pat's Yahoo. This, I hear, was not found favour with a number of old-timers, one in particular averring that he was more like an ape than anything else. Another honey-getter has a quite different description to give, this time a giant man with matted hair. I have also heard that there are several residents of the electorate of St. George yet alive who saw the brute, but they must be either old men now or gone to their long rest. If my memory for dates served me correctly, if Pat's idea of the creature was anything like true, it is more likely that some wonderful pedestrian feats were accomplished, far greater than any witnessed at Sir Joseph Banks' running grounds. The end. This article was published in the St George Call on Saturday, the 6th of July, 1907, a reminiscence of the 60s. A constant reader sends the following. I remember hearing of a party of shooters up National Parkway, camped near the fountain, having had an experience with the Yahoo. One of the number had a miraculous escape, in fact, having his coat rent asunder by the brute, and only that a couple of the party put shot into him. The result must have been fatal. The end. Okay, so this last article was published in the St George Call on Saturday, the 20th of July, 1907, titled Old Times. Bunyip writes, the Yahoo yarns remind me of what I heard a little dark Spanish-looking chap relate. He was camped at Bottle Forest House and had his 2 kangaroo dogs, Nap and Lou, noted to kill anything with him. Night closed in, and the dogs rushed in great alarm. The little chap seized his gun, and on going to the back of the house, was terror-struck at the sight of the hideous Yahoo. The description recently published in the Call bore out fairly well his idea of the brute. It practically hypnotised the little fellow, and gradually drew him onto the edge of a cliff. Recede he could not, and all of a sudden the monster disappeared into the chasm below, and not till then was the spell broken. The Spaniard never ventured forth after dark for many days. The end. Wow, that was some interesting stories. I like in the first one with Goggly shot at the Yowie, and he found the bullets flattened on the ground like they hadn't even done anything. I liked a bit about Jack Hardy with the Yowie saying Jack Hardy shot me. I reckon that's hilarious. The haunted house bit with Pat that saw the creature, that's like really amazing what he saw. 12 feet in height, starfish footprints, and also webbed, and they had suction underneath so he could pick up fish, and then they said it was belching forth in flames of fire. But then the old timers got upset about that story, with one guy saying it looked more like an ape if anything else, and another guy saying it looked like a giant man with matted hair. I like the story where the Yowie wanted the guy's coat. I wonder why he wanted the guy's coat. And then finally, that would have been freaky, the Spanish guy, where he was sort of hypnotised by the Yowie and was drawn into the edge of the cliff. That would have been so freaky. I don't blame him for not going outside. Okay, that's it from me. I'll get back to you all next time. Bye.